All right, welcome everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to get started now as the final folks trickle in. My name is Sean Orgel Olson, and I'm the marketing team lead here at Silicon Valley Clean Energy. I'll be your presenter today, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about stacking federal tax credits with rebates to maximize your savings. So let's get this thing rolling. But first things first, we're going to be sharing a lot of information about rebates and tax credits. But in case you need an extra bonus, we will be sharing a quick feedback survey at the end of this presentation. And you can fill it out for a chance to win a $100 credit on your bill. So please stay with us. The presentation shouldn't take the full hour, expected to take about 45 minutes or so. And we have a lot of valuable information to share with all of you today. Let me go forward here. Few just quick webinar protocols. You should be in listen-only mode, so keep the mics on mute. We do have a Q&A box for you to add your questions into, so feel free to drop your questions in there as the presentation goes on. We'll be answering all the Q&A questions that we possibly can at the end of the presentation. And in a follow-up email, we'll send you a recording of today's webinar. All right, high level agenda here. We're going to do a quick introduction to Silicon Valley Clean Energy. We're going to talk about going electric, kind of the 101 on that. And then we're going to dive into energy savings, and we're going to look at the tax credits and rebates for electrifying your home and your car. We're also going to look at tax credits for solar and battery systems. And we'll follow all of that with the Q&A and the webinar survey that we just discussed a moment ago. And so who are we? Well, Silicon Valley Clean Energy is your community-owned, not-for-profit electricity provider. If you live in one of the communities shown on the map there, you're getting clean electricity from us. And we were formed in 2016 when the county and a number of cities came together, decided we wanted more local control for where the energy comes from. And that was our founding moment. Since then, our mission has been to fight climate change by accelerating clean energy adoption. And because we're a not-for-profit, we reinvest revenues back into our communities. And we've dedicated over $116 million to customer rebates, offers, and services like some of the programs incentives we're going to discuss today. But how does it actually work? And you might be wondering, what about PG&E? So SVCE builds and procures electricity from clean and renewable sources. PG&E still owns the infrastructure, so the wires. They're maintaining those power lines, and they're also doing the billing. And you are benefiting from cleaner energy and local control. So when you look at your energy bill, you'll notice on there that we're under the electric generation charges line. We're not an extra charge. We're purely the generation portion. And at this moment, it's actually at a discount to PG&E's generation cost. So since our founding, we've saved customers, and since 2017, we've saved customers $141 million on their bills. And we're really proud of that fact. So overall, as an SVCE, Silicon Valley Clean Energy customer, you are getting clean electricity, and it's also cost effective. Ooh, pop quiz time. So we have a little quick pop quiz here. And you should see it pop up for you right now. And it's about SVCE poll. So hopefully it's showing, and if you want, you can just answer it really quickly. Which of the following is true about Silicon Valley Clean Energy? Hopefully this isn't too big of a stumper, since we did just go over the answers a second ago, but feel free to take another 10 seconds here to get into that poll. I can see over 50% of folks have already filled it out. Okay, almost at 75% now. And we're going to end the poll since we got really close to 100% of folks. And let's share those results and see if, let's see if you had the right answer. Wow, 98% of folks on the call had the correct answer. So great job. All of the above was the correct answer there. So told you it wouldn't be too hard. And I can see we have an A+ group here. So just a really quick recap. SVCE generates your electricity. PG&E delivers it to your home. And if you live in one of the communities that we serve, you're benefiting from clean electricity at competitive rates. Plus, you have access to Silicon Valley Clean Energy's rebates and programs. All right, jumping ahead here, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to go electric, how it helps you save, and the why. So here is an exciting graphic here, and let's start with just talking about energy efficiency. And to do this, we need to talk about fossil fuels. And this is a pretty surprising number. Almost 2/3 of carbon emissions in Santa Clara County come from fossil fuels used right in our homes and our vehicles. We still rely mostly on burning gas. And so we ran the numbers, and that means looking at all the different kind of equipment and appliances that are out there. And so that's actually, it's like 178,000 water heaters, 128,000 space heaters, almost 100,000 stoves, 81,000 dryers, and almost 500,000. It's 421,000 gas cars are out there right now. And what this really means is we have a huge opportunity here to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels with just a few household decisions in terms of what we have in our homes when it comes to equipment appliances and how we get around. All right, just over to the next slide here. So electrification, or going electric, is the process of replacing old appliances and equipment that use fossil fuels with ones that use clean electricity. And as you can see on this graphic here, kind of pointed out some areas that people are making those switches. And when you think about your home and your car, they're some of your biggest investments. So for the time, like when the time comes to change, to upgrade and go to something safer and more efficient, that equipment is available. And so we're here to share more about kind of what those options are. And we know you probably want the most energy efficient, safest option that's clean for you and your family and your community. Heat pumps. I should probably have another little poll here to ask if you've heard of heat pumps or not, but whether or not you've already heard of them, we're going to dive in and go over a little bit of why these things are so great. Heat pumps are the most efficient way to heat and cool your home. The bulk of the energy use in our homes goes towards heating our water and our spaces, and to cooling it as well. And so heat pumps work like your refrigerator, which is a heat pump. And what they do is they harvest the heat from the surrounding air. It's more efficient than generating that heat from combustion. And it then moves that heat to where it's needed to do the work. And so let's look at a few fun facts on heat pumps. They're 3 to 4 times more efficient than gas heaters. They work like your refrigerator, like we just mentioned. And when a heat pump is paired with an electrification-friendly rate, we actually see savings. And we've done some interesting bill analysis studies combining those electrification-friendly rates with heat pumps, and have seen anywhere from $250 to $350 or more dollars of savings per year. The next technology that we are going to look at, and here's a couple fun little quotes that they're hot and cool, but we're going to move ahead to induction stoves. And induction stoves are consistently ranked as the best cook stoves by Consumer Reports. And I'm guessing lots of you have heard of them before. And this is not your grandma or your grandpa's old electric resistance stove that you might have used before. They work differently and are far superior. Induction stoves use electromagnetic induction to actually generate heat within the cookware itself. And so unlike gas stoves and older electric stoves, induction ones actually heat the pot or pan directly, not the surface or surrounding air. And it's far more efficient than either of the older technologies. So let's move ahead here. They boil water faster. They keep your kitchen cooler because more of the energy goes to actually cooking the food versus heating the space around where you're cooking. And so that's like a pretty large difference. 90% energy going to cooking versus around 40% in your gas stove. They have very precise temperature control where you can really change things by a few degrees. And they're safer for pets, for children, and to help your indoor air quality. And you can see some examples in these photos here. Um, like one thing I love because I have one of these stoves is that you can clean them so easily. Things don't get caught between. I used to have a gas stove and there's always pieces falling in between the burners. It's like kind of hard to clean in there or something would boil over and end up all over that bottom layer. Induction, it's a flat cooktop, quick to clean. Your kitchen stays cooler, so your air conditioning doesn't have to work as hard if it's a hot summer day. And we see these now going out into the real world in large scale restaurants and being used and loved by chefs. And so we have a couple examples here. If you're a renter, maybe you live somewhere where you're not able to switch your stove, there are portable induction cooktops, like the one you can see in the top left corner there. They work really well. I gave one to my dad and stepmom recently, and they're really liking it. And you can put it right on top of your existing gas stove and maybe use it for the majority of your cooking, even depending on how many burners you're typically needing at the same time. They're affordable, and from time to time, we actually run promotions that help with the cost of these portable induction burners. All right. Now, here's a common question when we talk about electrification. Will my electric bill go up? And what we want everyone to remember is there is a down, up, down that happens when you switch to more electric things. Gas usage will go down. The electric part of your bill will go up. And the overall bill, when it's combined with the right rate, will typically go down. So it's important to make that switch to the best rate plan for you. And there are comparison tools out there to help you make that switch. But on average, like I mentioned earlier, the bill analysis is showing that with heat pumps, we can actually save significant amounts of money per year on overall bills. With other smart scheduling and behavior changes to run equipment during the lowest cost hours of the day, you can actually see even greater bill savings than that. And let's go to the next kind of common question, which is what about power outages? So many gas appliances actually still require some electricity to function. So a power outage oftentimes affects them as well. One of the benefits of all these smarter electric appliances is they actually can help with grid strain because they can be scheduled or even automated to take advantage of renewable energy when it's on the grid. Think of those times a day when solar is shining and there's lots of clean energy going into the grid. Well, these appliances can do some of that work during those moments of the day and actually help with peak hour demand, that kind of 4 to 9 period that we try to avoid using lots of energy. And the other thing to keep in note here is just that power outages are infrequent within the service area. But it's good to be prepared and it's good to have a plan. And so we have a link here and we'll include all the links that we share in this presentation in the follow-up email, as well as the presentation itself. So don't worry about jotting it down at this moment. So you can follow up with any resources you're interested in. So just to recap things here, going electric has multiple benefits for your home and for your community. These are photos of real residents who have gone electric within the service area. And the really great news is that there are rebates and resources, services available to make this process easier for you. You don't have to do everything at once. You can do things as the time is right for you. A lot of these appliances and a piece of equipment, have a lifespan around 10 years or maybe up to 20 years. So if you're nearing, you could replace them. You could take advantage of some of the tax credits and incentives that are stackable today to make replacements. And these are decisions you don't have to make frequently. It's kind of one of the good things here as well. They're decisions to upgrade your home. These are big, long-lasting items. And so you don't have to do this all the time. And you can really look into the benefits of these electric equipment options. All right, switching gears, and please do feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A anytime. We're going to get to all of those following the presentation. And like I mentioned, only expect the presentation to be about 45 minutes. We're going to actually dive into the bulk of the presentation now and talk about the tax credits, rebates and incentives for electrifying your home first, and then we'll move on to talk about vehicles after. And we'll actually give some stacking examples so you can see how the tax credits can be combined with the rebates as we go through the material. So as many of you know, maybe the reason you're here today is that we have some tax credits that are sunsetting. And so on this chart here, you can see in order of expiration, the tax credits that we'll be covering. And the first ones that will be expiring will be the vehicle ones for electric vehicles. Then we'll have this whole group of kind of electrification and efficiency measures. And then rooftop solar and battery. We'll talk more detail here because there will be some options after the end of year for those. And then there's also an EV charger one that has a little bit of a longer runtime. And as a disclaimer, we don't provide tax advice. So this information is just being provided to assist you in considering your options for electric upgrades. So consult IRS documentation or your tax advisor for specific advice for your situation. But with that said, let's dive into our first slide that really gets into some of the home improvements you can make, these electrification measures in your home, and where the tax credits sit versus the Silicon Valley clean energy rebates. I think one other thing to mention before I dive into that is that our rebates are not going away at the end of this year. Our rebates will remain in place for at least the foreseeable future. And so just keep that in mind, that the base rebate that you see there and the income qualified rebate, they may change over time, or eventually they could even go away at some point, but there's no scheduled end date for any of those. So if you look at the heat pump water heater or heat pump HVAC, there's a combined total of $2,000 up to $3,000 of tax credit available. And then from Silicon Valley Clean Energy, we have a base rebate for heat pump water heaters of $2,000 and heat pump heating and cooling systems, $2,500. For going from a gas range to an induction cooktop or range, we provide a rebate for a base or income qualified level for that. There isn't a tax credit on that one. And we also have rebates to help with the actual wiring of any kind of new electric equipment that you're putting in or pre-wiring for. And so we have the amount there for the per device that you're installing. And it's actually a significant amount of the cost for those. We've done a recent study on that. And this really helps take away any kind of wiring cost, or at least reduce it significantly for running wiring for new devices. On this next slide here, we have our home rebates that are more of add-ons and where the tax credit applies here. So electrical upgrades like a panel that needs replacement. We also have some pre-wiring support for EV charging on our end that doesn't have a stackable tax credit on that one. And there's induction cookware. So if you switch to an induction stove, there's an add-on for the actual cookware itself to make sure it's compatible. And then we have a bonus at the very end. So if you are amazing and you go fully electric and you don't need your gas line anymore and you remove it, we actually have a $500 bonus to celebrate that achievement. That's one of the rebates that we provide. So if you want to get started with these, again, we're going to send links at the end. So we do have a short link here, but you can learn more about the rebates on our home rebates webpage. And we will also send it in the follow-up email so you can look at it. But before you go there, you might want to consider a new tool that we released this year called Assisted Home Upgrades. And this is a free online tool that helps you find out which upgrades apply to your home. You can request quotes from participating contractors. And one really great feature of this tool is that you can apply for multiple rebates all at once. So let's say there's a state incentive plus the Silicon Valley Clean Energy rebate. You could apply for those through a streamlined application process and get support along the way. The tool also does have information about the tax credits, although it doesn't actually help you like claim them. It does have information about the tax credits available for the measures that you're applying. So highly recommend checking this tool out and giving it a whirl. There's support available throughout the process, and it's available for free to you. There's no commission to us as your not-for-profit, clean energy provider. We're just providing this as a service to help make going electric as easy as possible. Next up, we wanted to share a little bit about our emergency water heater replacement service. So if your water heater breaks, you suddenly find yourself with cold water, give our service a call 24/7 and get your hot water restored as quickly as possible. We actually will provide, if needed, a gas water heater that's a loaner one until time's available to make any changes needed for a heat pump water heater to be installed. The pricing is transparent and fixed, and the rebates are applied as part of this process. So the heat pump water heater rebate that you saw a couple slides back is part of this. And you can also apply for the tax credits while they last, if you are eligible again, to that total cost. So you may not need this today because hopefully your hot water heater is fine, but we do know the lifespan a lot of times is around 8 to 10 years. So you can jot down this website. Again, we'll send it in the follow-up. And there's a number you can call if the inevitable happens and you find yourself waking up to a cold shower. All right, switching gears, we're going to just look at an example of stacking and saving here. And in this particular example, we're going from a gas water heater to a heat pump version, so heat pump water heater. We have the upfront cost here, which is based on a median pricing that we've seen across hundreds of projects. We have the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Rebate. There is one from Tech Clean California being applied as well. And again, if you use our assisted home upgrades tool, it'll make it easy to kind of see these next to each other. And then we see a cost after rebates presented and the 30% federal tax credit. So 30% of the after rebate cost of $1170. So the end cost in this particular example is $2730, which is cheaper or competitive with gas water heaters, getting a new one put in. So yeah, this is a good example of how that stacking really does bring the cost down and make these extremely cost efficient and effective. And so it's a great moment if your water heater is on its last legs. Over here, we have switching from a gas furnace to a heat pump heating and cooling system. And so we have an upfront cost that, again, is just for illustrative purposes here. And depending on your situation, we know that installs can vary. But this is for a ductless mini split system. And you can see in the photo there, someone is sitting in front of the indoor part of that system and controlling the temperature of their space. This is a 2-zone one where you'd be able to independently control temperature in 2 separate zones. And the SVCE rebate here, and this is our base rebate amount of $2,500 is being applied. The Tech Clean California rebate is being stacked. And then the cost after rebates is being used to calculate the 30% federal tax credit that could be applied, bringing the total end cost down to, in this particular example, $4410. And again, we find that this is cheaper or competitive with having to replace your existing gas furnace at your home. And of course, the benefit is not only is it a gas furnace replacement, it also does efficient cooling of the space as well. In this case, this is actually pricing that is based on a program we offer called Full Service Home Upgrades, where we kind of take care of everything for you from the project management to the rebate process and installation. And we have transparent fixed pricing for that. So that's where we pulled the price of this 2-zone mini split system for this example. All right. So just to recap here, we offer quite a few ways to take advantage of our rebates. We have a self-service option where you can choose your own contractor or DIY the project with the relevant permits. you would reserve your rebate, and after installation, you would claim your reimbursement. We have an assisted option, the assisted home upgrades option, which helps you get quotes and find contractors, as well as apply for the multiple incentives at the same time. And there's no cost associated with using the tool. And the rebates, the same amount of total available rebates from us is available through that option. And that final option that I've only hinted at a second ago, is our full service one. This is where, if you're busy, and you just want someone to handle everything for you, from assessing what you have in person to doing the installation, getting the permits, and including the rebates, we have something that's called full service. And so if you want to see all the pathways side by side and compare the benefits of them, you can visit our home upgrades page. The short link is here. We'll send it in the email. And you can compare side by side and see which one fits kind of your level of appetite for how much of this you want to take on yourself. And one final little plug, we have that emergency replacement for the emergency water heater service. You can find this through the full service page or through our incentives finder. We'll be talking about that tool in a few minutes. And that allows you to get the loaner water heater if needed and get a heat pump water heater installed. So a lot to cover. Don't worry about memorizing it all, but we will share out all these resources. Next up, we are going to jump into our solar and battery assistant and talk about the solar tax credits, where we are with those, and kind of what's available now, what's available in the future. So our solar battery assistant allows you to compare solar and battery quotes from various installers side by side. It also has support from energy advisors who can answer questions about the quotes you're receiving, built within this tool. And you can see the link down on this page. So the first thing to cover here is that the tax credit, the 25D federal tax credit, which is 30% of qualifying costs for installing solar and battery, is expiring, sunsetting at the end of this year. And so systems need to be fully installed to be eligible. Again, this isn't tax advice, and talk to your advisor, but they do need to be installed based on the current guidance. And so there's some questions to ask if you are trying to buy your system yourself and own it outright from the beginning. And those questions are, what's the expected installation date if you're working with installers through our tool or outside? And we know that installation timelines are tight right now, so you may want to use our tool. You may also need to go outside to continue finding installers that are able to find enough, open spots if you're really trying to get this in by the end of year. What are the options if the installer can't complete the project? For example, what are the cancellation policies? Those types of questions. And if the installer doesn't have a preferred exact equipment that you desire in stock, what are the other options? And you could kind of go through approving them to use maybe other brands of panels or inverters, the equipment necessary for this installation. You can bring those questions up just to try to cover your bases, but it is getting late in the timeline already, just given lead time needed for these projects. The good news is that there will be options for receiving the benefits of the tax credits going forward. So we want to share a little bit about these 25D tax credits, which are claimed by the homeowner for systems that are purchased with a cash or loan. And those are the ones that are expiring end of year. And there's also ones that are claimed by the actual installation company, and those are incorporated in the costs presented in leases and power purchase agreements. And those expire at the end of 2027. And so there's a little bit more time frame there. And we're actually going to show some example calculations on kind of how potential savings could work out depending on which path you go down. And one final note on this is that for battery storage specifically, the 48E, so the one that's claimed by the installation company, those tax credits at this point have a longer runtime through 2033. And so we just noted that there, but we're not going to go into detail on battery only in the upcoming slides. All right, so here is a comparison between essentially the purchase system, like a cash purchase, where the tax credit is taken by the homeowner. and what the 20-year savings potential is. And this is a mock-up system, like a 7 kilowatt solar system with a 10 kilowatt hour battery that our solar and battery assistant folks put together for us. So we'd have some numbers to kind of look at and see what the total savings potential, and these are for example purposes, but may look like. And so it's the same size system, same exact system across all of these examples. So you'll see on here, the gross cost is going to be the same with or without the tax credit, assuming that the pricing was staying the same. The tax credit value is about a third of that gross cost for the cash purchase with the tax credit by end of year. And that 20-year savings potential is around $60,000 for that. There's still significant savings without the tax credit, so we want to just point that out. And there's also the 48E version where the installer claims the credit and it factors it into payments. And even with those types of arrangements, the PPA arrangements, there's still significant savings potential available. And again, these are just examples. We want to show them side by side. And so these are owned system versus the third-party owned system. We have a few more examples here, probably more information than necessary. And again, going through our tool, you can ask energy advisors to really go over this in greater detail. But we wanted to show if someone were to want to do their project by end of year with a loan, what that would look like as far as potential monthly payments and the savings potential. And you can flip between these slides to see the 20-year savings potential between that the cash payment system with the tax credit versus these loan options with or without the tax credit. And then we also have the PPA with the tax credit, and this would be a $0 down option as well, and kind of what the monthly payments may look like, which will vary based on the power that's actually produced. In that case, the installer is actually claiming the tax credit. And the 20-year savings potential, kind of what that looks like when there are loan payments involved and a tax credit or not a tax credit. So it's first and second column here. So I know this is a bit heavy on the numbers, but the kind of overall point here is that there's a short window for owned systems to take advantage of the 25D tax credit and to check out our solar and battery tool to ask your questions there. And you can look at cost comparisons between the different ways to finance and have your solar tax credit either claimed by you or claimed by the installer in the future. All right. We're going to shift gears here and jump into electric vehicles. And we're going to talk about the rebates and incentives for electric vehicles, how to save on charging, and again, give a couple of examples of stacking the tax credits with rebates. So let's kick it off with a little bit of information about a special EV discount campaign that we're working on with a local nonprofit called Ride and Drive Clean. And they are they're helping just in September of this year. And what they're doing is they're partnering with local car dealers and are negotiating some limited time discounts on electric vehicles. And the savings are passed directly on to customers like you. And they're featuring 3 to 5 vehicle models and deals. So we'll be announcing the September discounts by the end of the week. You can sign up to be notified of those at the short link on this page that we'll also include in that follow-up email. They'll be available through September 30th, which aligns with the sunsetting of the tax credit. And there will be purchase and lease deals available. They'll be stackable with our rebates, which are income qualified for our rebates, and we'll go into more details on those. And the pricing will be pre-negotiated with the dealers, as I mentioned previously. And to learn more about that campaign, on that same page that I just mentioned with Ride and Drive Clean, they'll be going into 2 final webinars that really detail what the discount campaign is about, the different incentives that are out there, leasing versus buying, and which EV models are being featured in their pricing. All right, Silicon Valley Clean Energy does have an EV rebate. It can actually be claimed instantly at point of sale at participating dealerships or applied post-purchase. Any EV or hybrid vehicle under $55,000 is available. And for this particular rebate, there are income qualifications that apply. And so you can go to the EV rebate webpage to learn more about the specific income qualifications, but it's 80% of area median income or less is the qualification for that. And so we gave a 2 and 4 person household example here. So these rebates can be stacked with the tax credits, and that's what we want to show once we've gone through what those tax credits are. So there's currently $3,500 to $7,500 available for new EVs acquired by September 30th. And the IRS recently put out some information about what acquired means, which we included in this slide. And again, this is a case to learn more by visiting the actual IRS EV tax credit website where they have the details, but they mentioned that it would be acquired. So it's the date that a written binding contract is entered and a payment has been made, and the payment may be a nominal down payment or a vehicle trade-in. So they added a little bit of additional nuance there to make it clear what you would need to be done before September 30th in order to claim the tax credit on new or used EVs. So this is for the new EVs. There are income qualifications, which we include here, and there are specific EVs and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles available. So you can take a look at those at fueleconomy.gov. There's also a $4,000 used EV tax credit that has the same timeline. And both of these can be claimed, this one as well, at point of sale at dealerships. There's a vehicle price cap for the used EV, and the same thing where no tax liability is required for it. And specific EVs or plug-in hybrids vehicles are eligible, and the model year needs to be 2023 or older for these. So there's other requirements, and this is a good one to talk over with your local car dealership. It has income qualifications that are different than the new EV tax credit. So you'll want to review those again with your tax advisor or the IRS webpage to learn the exact details on how to claim and if you're eligible for those. But these are ending soon. These are on that time, the chart that we looked at together, these are the ones that are actually expiring soonest. Wanted to make a little plug for PG&E's used EV rebate. All of our customers should be eligible, we believe, for the $1,000 standard rebate, and there's actually a $4,000 rebate plus for income qualified applicants that can be stacked, and it's less than the 80% area median income for that one. You can find information about this one at PG&E's website, since they're the administrator of it and operator of it, but we wanted to plug it here because it is part of that kind of stack that we're going to look at in these examples coming up. They have a requirement of applying within 180 days, and it's only for used for the PG&E one, but they can be purchased or leased. So here's a stack and save example. We pulled this up from our actual own EV Finder tool. This is a 2022 Chevy Bolt EV, which is like the larger of the Bolts. Has a range of around 250 miles. And the estimated upfront cost, just illustrative here, $17,000. The SVC rebate, which is income qualified, of $2,000 applied. Assuming that person is also income qualified for the used EV rebate, that's another $4,000. So in this case, it would bring them down to $11,000. And then there's the 30% used EV federal tax credit on top of that. And so then the net is $7,700 plus taxes and fees here off of that original $17,000 purchase price. And you save, in this case, around 50% or more, a little bit more than 50% on the vehicle. And we want to share a new example as well. So this is a 2025 Chevy Equinox EV, just example vehicle, range of around 320 miles, and its MSRP is $33,800. And there we have our income qualified SBCE rebate here, and you have a cost after rebates of $31,800. This one would receive, if the purchaser was eligible, the $7,500 federal tax credit And so the net would bring them down to 24,300 plus taxes and fees. So 9,500 total off of MSRP for that one. A good reminder to just check fueleconomy.gov for the vehicle models that are eligible for the full $7,500 credit for the new EVs. All right, well, once you have an EV and you've electrified your ride, you might think, oh, well, I need to figure out charging. And so we want to share a few resources that help with charging. We have a PG&E rebate that's out there that helps pay for charging equipment. And again, we'll send the link since it was too long to put there, but we will send the link out to that one. We have our own charging application that helps you shift your charging and sync it to the cheapest times of day, and also participate in low carbon charge events. And we have a sign up bonus available for that. And you can visit our page or incentives finder to find out more about grid shift. A little plug here for electric vehicle rate plans to make sure you're getting cost-effective rates on charging overnight and into the morning and beginning of the day, really. PG&E has an EV rate savings calculator that helps you look at that rate versus the rate you may be already on. And a final note is that we actually have a large rebate for multifamily complexes to help them install EV chargers. So if you're part of an HOA or at an apartment complex and want to speak with management, you can talk to them about our multifamily EV charging incentive, which helps cover the cost of installing chargers so that everyone can access them easily from their homes. And the final thing we want to share about EVs here is that, we know that getting a vehicle is only part of the cost. And so when you look at the full cost of ownership, we're looking at fuel, insurance, maintenance. And when we look at EVs, there is just less parts. They have less moving parts, fewer parts that can break. And we see maintenance savings a lot of times for EV drivers. We actually have a tool, our EV Finder allows you to compare the cost of ownership, the full costs between different models, and kind of give you a sense of what potential savings could look like and some of the additional benefits. So highly recommend looking at that. And one great thing about the EV Finder tool is it also has live feeds to local dealerships with vehicles used and new. So just another plug for EV Finder. Take a look at it, see if you can find something that fits your budget and your needs. But we're really excited to be getting the word out about the federal tax credits while they're available through the end of the month. And we're going to jump into a few resources to help you with your upgrade. The first one is our eHub Incentives Finder, and this is the place to start. If there's any resource that you want to remember from this whole presentation, it's eHub and the Incentives Finder that's on there. You can discover all of our incentives, rebates, services, and educational content about the benefits of the different technologies that we talked about today on the eHub. But we understand sometimes you want to talk to a real person, so we have an option for that as well. We have our Go Electric Advisor service where you can get free personalized advice to talk about going electric. And it's available on the phone, it's available via email, and there's even live chat on the site where you can ask your questions and get unbiased opinions and support. There's no commission for any of the Go Electric advisors. We're helping with this service to just answer any questions you have and help you take the next steps on your Go Electric journey. EV Finder we just mentioned. You can find those incentives on there, as well as charging stations, the cost of vehicles and potential savings, and then actual vehicles themselves. And the assisted home upgrades tool that I think I've mentioned 2 or 3 times today, because we're really excited about this new tool where you can find contractors, get quotes, and stack rebates with the single application. So take a look at that tool. I think it could help jumpstart your project and potentially get you ahead so you can claim the tax credits on going electric at home. Well, that was a whirlwind, and it looks like we're right around the 45 a little over 45-minute mark here. So just want to say thank you so much for joining today. We have this page with many of the resources we spoke about today and a few others. We'll be sharing this out. We also wanted to plug again our webinar survey. So this is your chance to fill out our survey. You'll have a chance to win a $100 bill credit as part of this. It's really short. We appreciate your feedback. We want to make sure these webinars are as useful as possible to everyone. So if someone on the team here could drop the link into the chat on Zoom, please, that would be awesome. And we can start jumping into the Q&A in a moment. So yeah, if someone on the team could just drop the webinar survey link into chat, that would be appreciated, and we'll jump into the Q&A. We'll give a few minutes for folks. We'll just have about 1 minute just to get the survey at least open, and you can do it in a few minutes. But then we can jump into any of the questions that haven't been answered in the Q&A, and feel free to add additional questions through the Q&A feature if you had any left. And I see a couple here. So while you're getting the survey open, and thanks again for taking that, we can jump into a couple that aren't answered yet. One is about a gas heater in a closet, and will an induction heater work in our house? So, every house is different, and I think probably you're referring to the heat pump heating and cooling systems that we talked about a little bit today. We have more information about them on eHub, but if your gas heater's in a closet, maybe it's a kind of central furnace type gas furnace situation, there are good plug-in replacements for those. And there's also the mini split systems we talked about that are highly efficient. So would recommend, and this is, I'm just answering Vivian here, recommend you start on our eHub and probably look at our assisted home upgrades tool as well, where you can look at your specific situation for the equipment you currently have, and which replacement is the best one for you. Just seeing if there's any additional questions in Q&A. And I think it looks like most of them have been answered. Well, here's one about tankless water heaters. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about tankless water heaters. At this point, we're really helping folks move to heat pump water heaters because they're highly efficient, taking advantage of that heat pump technology we went over, where we're harvesting heat from the surrounding air. And with tankless water heaters, there's two variants of those. There are both gas ones, so like fossil gas tankless water heaters, and there are electric ones as well, but the electric ones have a very high amperage demand on them and don't have the efficiency gains of a heat pump water heater. So, our rebates are set up to help folks move into heat pump water heaters from their current ones because of the efficiency that's available there, and even the potential for bill savings when combined with the right rate. So at this time, we don't have a rebate or program for tankless water heaters. And okay, there's a few more questions in the Q&A. Feel free to stay on if you have any and you want to drop them into chat here. And thanks again for joining us today if you need to jump off. Okay, here we go. So this next question is, how do I know if my installer applied for my SVCE credits, or do I need to apply for them? It's a good question. And I think that the best thing to do if you're working with an installer already on a project is to reach out to your installer and just find out from them if they applied or helping you apply, or if you need to apply for the credit yourself. But definitely be in communication with them about it, because some contractors help more through the process than others, and it kind of just depends on how they work. So yeah, really be case by case. And if you need any assistance with that, you can reach out to our contact us on our website. and our programs team is able to support and answer any questions kind of specific to the rebate process and where you might fall within the timeline. One more question here, and then I think unless there's any final Q&As, we'll close the discussion. But this question was talking about the upgrade to heat pumps to replace AC or furnace and kind of what the amounts are that are out there available. And kind of in our example that we presented, we showed that there's the SVCE base rebate amount of $2,500, and there's also the federal tax credit up to $2,000 there as well. You have to look at your specific situation and again your eligibility for the tax credit, but you would look at your after rebate cost, and that's what would be used to determine your federal tax credit. So yeah, it's a tax credit for that 30%, and it post any rebates being applied to it. Yes, I see a question here. If we'll send out the presentation slides. Yes, we will. We'll send out the presentation to everyone, as well as some of the links and resources in a follow-up email. All right. I believe I think we've pretty much concluded the Q&A session here. I'm seeing one more question here, and there's a good disclaimer, not tax advisor, please investigate further. I think that for any specific situations, these are tax credits, they're not deductions, but you should work with a tax advisor to get into the exact details for your situation, the eligibility for the tax credits, since it does vary, and we're not able to give any kind of tax advice in here. But we really appreciate your questions and hope that this at least helps with figuring out the timeline to get in if you do want to try to leverage tax credits in combination with our rebates and other available incentives that are out there. So with that, I think we will close the Q&A and the webinar. And thanks so much for joining us today. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and look forward to seeing you in the future.